My name is Charles Harrell with the Veterans History Project. Today is September 17, 2005. I'm here with Mr. Eugene O'Neill in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, interviewing him about his World War II experiences. For the record, Mr. O'Neill, can you state your full name?
Yes, Eugene Patrick O'Neill, Jr.
And what war did you serve in?
I served in World War II, Korean, and till the beginning of the Vietnam.
Can you tell me your current address?
4718 Colonel Darnell Place, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, 20772.
What branch of service were you in during World War II?
U.S. Army.
And what would your company have been?
Company C, 1st Battalion, 319th Infantry, 80th Division, Patton's 3rd Army.
What was your rank when you went into the Army?
Private.
And what was it when you finally got out of the Army?
PFC, Private First Class.
Do you recall the day that you were inducted?
Yes, I think so.
What date would that be?
It was about the middle of July 1944. I don't know the exact date.
And when were you released?
In June of 46.
Mr. O'Neill, I'd like you to think back to your earliest memories of growing up. Can you tell me what's your first memory of your parents that you can recall?
I grew up in an Irish family in northeast Washington. At that time, Washington was broken down more into ethnic areas like the Irish and the Italians and so forth. And my section I grew up in was pretty much a mixture. Earliest thing I can recall in my family, my father was a civil servant, was a sheet metal worker with the district government. He got sick in 1934 and was in the U.S. Naval Hospital since he was a veteran of World War I. And I spent it seemed to me at that time, about 4 to 6 months. At that time, we had no money coming in or anything, and we were on the verge of losing our home. Didn't know where the next meal was coming from, but my mother's family and my father's family came to our aid, kept us going until he got back out of the hospital and got back to work again.
How old were you about this time?
About 8 years old.
When were you born?
1926.
In?
That was about 1934.
In January?
Yeah, well...
January 9th?
January 9th, 1926 I was born.
You were 8, and those are your first memories of your father being sick.
What's the first memory? Because I had a good home family life. I mean, stay-at-home mom. There was 4 children.
What's her name, your mama?
Sarah. She went by Toots. My dad went by Cooch. So they had nicknames and so forth. Dad was very, very dapper man. He would get up and go to work and put on a blue serge pants, white shirt, and a bow tie, and carry his uniform to work. And he'd come home that same way. Worked as a sheet metal worker doing that all that time.
Bow tie, working with sheet metal.
Well, he then would change at work into his uniform, work uniform, then put that back on and come home. Yes.
You mentioned that your grandparent families helped out during that time of sickness.
Well, yeah, my mother's sisters and brother and my father's sisters and brother-in-law helped us get through that period of time. Those days was family there, and families were very close because everybody was struggling. Unemployment was somewhere around 30% at that time, and it was really a tough period of time.
But your dad was employed, right?
Was employed until he got sick, but there was no benefits. And today you hear the famous Social Security argument and all that's going on, but back then Social Security became the only surviving thing, but that didn't come into effect about 1937 there.
So it didn't really help your family?
Didn't help us out any, but it did help many people out later.
Does your family heritage, have they been here a long, long time?
No, my great-grandfather came over in the 1850s during the potato famine in Ireland, settled here in Washington.
That would be the O'Neill family?
The O'Neill family, yeah. And my great-grandmother came over about the same time, and they settled in New York. Her maiden name was Costello there.
Was she also Irish background?
Oh, yeah. So, but I contribute whatever success I have to Catholic education I received. The nuns of Sisters of St. Joseph's taught me to read, and read well, and as a result of that, I could be successful in life. I sort of had a photographic memory at that time. So
I'd like to ask you about your dad. You said he was World War I vet. What did he do during the First War?
Nothing. He was in there getting ready to ship overseas when the war ended out of there. He was in it for about a year.
Was he in the Army, or was that what he was?
He was in the Army. And he was, in fact, I got the last card he sent home to his mother, because he wasn't married at the time. I sent home to his mother stating that she won't be hearing from him for a while, that he's going overseas. And then the war ended, which was a blessing for him.
Did he ever talk about how he felt about World War I?
Not too much. I mean, the fact is, he served, and I think it's a different time World War I was.
In 1932, the World War I veterans were protesting to get their so-called bonus in Washington. Right. Was your father involved with any of that?
I don't believe he was in the protests. I mean, he supported it, but he wasn't involved in it. These men came from all over the country there.
Can you describe the neighborhood? You mentioned it was an ethnic neighborhood that you grew up in. Was it the same house that you lived in the entire time?
Yeah, I was born at 1326 E Street, Northeast. And at 9 months of age, I moved around the corner. My mother bought a row house at 1313 F Street, Northeast. And I grew up there until I went in the service from there. And so from 1926 until 1944, that was my home, well, even up until I got married in 47.
You mentioned your mother bought it.
My mother and father bought it.
Oh, I see. Your dad got sick in 34.
Right.
Did he recover?
Yeah, he recovered, but they never recovered financially again. It was a tough fight all the rest of their lives. But
how long was he out of work, do you think?
Somewhere probably 3 to 6 months. I don't know. You know, I just know they didn't let us feel anything. They kept things going and kept it to themselves. They never shifted anything. But we all had to pitch in and help out. And I've worked. I started serving newspapers when I was about 12 years old. I served newspapers till I was 16. And those days we were our own entrepreneur. We served our papers, collected our money for the papers, and paid our bill, and what was left over was ours, and that was done on a weekly basis. So you really had your own little business going at that time, and I did that from the time I was 12 until about 16. At 16, I worked various jobs.
Were you successful at newspapers?
Oh, yeah, I was very successful. I got a number of trips which I'd never gotten. I got trips to Philadelphia, New York, and by getting new serves, new customers, and it gave me money that my parents couldn't give me. You know.
You mentioned that you came from a family of 4 siblings. Who are your siblings?
I have two older sisters, Doris and Irma. I'm the middle child. And my brother Bill. And in 1940 we had the last member of the family born was Peggy. There's 5 of us actually, but during the Depression time there was just the 4 of us.
Was there one sister or brother that you were closer to
We were all
emotionally?
pretty close. We were just closely knitted. Well, excuse me. When my mother passed away and my sister took over, she became the head of the family, and we all worked back through her. And we've all stayed really close over the years and so forth as a family.
Was your mother still alive when you went off to service?
Yes.
I'd like for you to think and describe to me your school. You mentioned you were Catholic educated.
Right. Well, I was educated in Holy Comforter School, Sisters of St. Joseph. They emphasize reading, writing, and arithmetic much more than they do today. I think we could take a lesson from back then, and my first 8 years there was probably the basis for my education. I went from there, I won a half scholarship to Gonzaga High School, which is one of the premier Catholic high schools in D.C. But I couldn't take it because my parents couldn't afford it. It was $200 and they couldn't come up with $100. So, and being Irish, too proud to go to the pastor, Monsignor there, to church and asked him for assistance. But the Irish are proud people.
Did you go to public school at all?
I went to public high school. I went to 9th grade at junior high school, and then it took me 3 high schools to get through. I went to Tech mainly for the technical part of it, and I also took college prep. And I was going with my future wife at the time, and she was going to Eastern. So in the 3rd year, I transferred over to Eastern with her. And then I got in a bind in February of '44. I lacked 2 credits to graduate. My mother wanted me to graduate, so I transferred over to Anacostia High School. Took a class in the morning and a class in the afternoon to get my diploma.
During the 1930s, did your dad or any of your uncles work for the alphabet soup worth of programs FDR was coming up with a New Deal?
Yeah. I had one uncle that did. And he's the one that never worked until that came in.
What was that organization? You remember?
I don't know. It may have been the NEA. I'm not sure which one it was now, but he was with one of them. And my sister in 1939 got into a program that the government had set up, and she went into a government office and trained until such time as she was old enough to work in the government.
But your father never had to? Your father never had to?
No. My father had a job with the district government all through that time. Most famous thing he goes for that. My father was an excellent baseball player. In fact, he went away and got homesick and came home. And he played in the semi-pro leagues around Washington for years and so forth. And one thing that he had done on his job and so forth is so-called refuse can, trash can you see around Washington for years that had the drop side. He designed that and made the first ones by hand there with that drop side on it and everything. Which, when you think about it, he'd do everything. He didn't have any electric tools or anything else to do with it. You had to do all your molds by machine and everything. Yeah. So he's quite a man.
How did he affect you? Was he an idol figure for you, or was he very close to you and talked to you like a...
No, in those days, I don't think you as far as talk with parents, I don't think we really communicated in that fashion. They there as a model, role model, and that was it. My mother was home, a wonderful cook. She could do most anything with food, and my dad had certain rules, regulations. Dinner went on the table at 5 o'clock, and everybody sat down together at 5 o'clock. Yeah, and I carried on that with my family when my family was coming along. We all sat down at the table at 5 o'clock, which is totally different from what today.
Did you have electricity and running water in those houses?
We had running water. We didn't have electricity. We got electricity in 1938. We had gas light in there. And we had an old big stove in the kitchen that we cooked by that had a water jacket in and oven in it and everything else. And my mother did the cooking and baking all in there. Later on we got a gas stove, but during that period of time she had to do most of her cooking like that. The one thing about it is that we had hot water and we had a hot water heater, but that hot water with a heater would probably be only turned on maybe for the Saturday night baths there, because we couldn't afford to turn it on and pay the gas bill. Had to keep that within norms.
Is that house still there today?
Yeah, it's still there. Couldn't afford to buy it today. It's Capitol Hill East. Probably worth $300,000 or $400,000 in there. And it's just a little old row house, 3 bedrooms, and 1 bath.
When you were in elementary and middle type school there at the Catholic school, was there anything that you hoped to be when you were growing up? Before the war started?
No, I never knew, anything. You always trained to think you wanted to be a priest. That was some of it, because that was the basic belief. Religion was very, very strong in your family. Religion helped people to get through. But I don't recall anything in particular. Just as a kid, I kept busy. I served my newspapers. I played sports.
Were you a big sports player?
Yeah, I played football and basketball in the boys' clubs, baseball and everything as a kid besides that. And I really didn't have much time.
Did you have a very close friend outside your family?
Well, I have one guy I grew up with and became my real close friend in high school, a by the name of Bob Morrison, who's passed on.
What did you and him do together that made you so close?
Well, he'd come over to the house and when I was going to Anacostia and get me up and make sure I went to school. That's for sure, so I would finish. And
same age as you, right?
Yeah, about a year younger, a year or two younger. And he was my best man in 1947. I was his best man in the 50s when he got married. And we just stayed in contact over the years. He's the one that got me to go into the D.C. National Guard. I come out of service in 52. I still had a couple years on that enlistment left. And he got me to go into the service, come over to the D.C. National Guard. He'd just come back from Korea and they were setting up a MASH unit over in the D.C. National Guard. And he was getting his commission as a second lieutenant, and he told me to come on over and be a supply sergeant, which I went over. And I think that was really what helped to begin my government career, because I guess in 55, somewhere around there, we had another recession, probably even a depression if you want to call it, but not like the one of the 30s. And so I was selling at that time, and auto parts and so forth, and the company I worked for folded. Went back to Baltimore, and I don't like Baltimore, so I didn't go to Baltimore, so I was just out on a limb. So I took a job as a supply specialist with D.C. Air National Guard, and as a GS-5, and it was from there that I went into the federal government and spent my career.
The 1930s, late 1930s, you're 10 to 14 years old, and Hitler was coming to power in Europe. Were you aware of Hitler at that time?
Not too much in there. I mean, it was, communications is not like it is today, you know. I mean, we knew of it, but it had little effect on us at that time. We were really not affected until 1941 when Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, even though there was a lot being done at that time.
Can you tell me the movies that you saw in the late 30s? Did you go to the movies much?
I went to a lot of them, but I don't recall too many of them.
How about the radio? Did you have favorite radio programs you listened to?
Not in particular, really. My mother and sisters used to listen to the soaps. Yeah. And I wasn't allowed in the house at that time. Because if we even opened our mouth up, whatever my mother had in her hand, we may get upside the head. So my brother and I just stayed out rather than get in trouble. There, you know.
That was their time.
That was their time, between 11 to 1.
On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, we were attacked. You recall that day?
Oh, yeah.
Where were you?
At a Redskin football game.
Had you gone to Redskin football games before?
I used to go. I'd win tickets to the Redskins serving newspapers. And I went out there.
Who were they playing that day? Do you recall?
Chicago Bears, I think it was. I don't know. I forgot really, but I think it was Chicago Bears for some reason.
So you were sitting there, and how did you hear the news?
They made an announcement over the loudspeaker system. They asked all the military to report back to their bases, stations there. And that's how we heard it, and then really didn't hear any great emphasis until the next day. The famous speech of Franklin Roosevelt.
Did you hear that on the radio?
I heard it on the radio.
You're a 14-year-old boy at the time. How did you feel?
I wanted to go into service.
Did you know anybody else that within weeks was
yeah, there was
to go?
A lot of my family had. My brother-in-law was one of the first ones drafted. Well, I didn't know him at the time, and but I had family members that were drafted and ones that enlisted right away and so forth. My father's family. But and then in high school, all we wanted to do was get old enough to get in the service. And I remember having a big discussion with my mother when I was 17. And those days you could enlist if you had your parents' approval. A lot of my friends did enlist at 17. And I wanted to go in the Navy in 1943, I guess it was. And she told me she wouldn't sign for me. She told me I was going to finish high school.
What did your dad have to say?
He didn't have any say. She's the boss.
She was the boss in the family.
When it comes to the kids. So, but, and when I did finish high school, I told her then I'd go, but I'm not going to do nothing. I'm just going to go for another year, and then I'll be drafted and go in.
Meaning you didn't try very much?
I didn't try. I didn't have to, really. Like I say, I had a good mind, and from my training in elementary school, and that's where your basics come in, is back in.
In high school, did you hope to get a certain type of skill? What did you hope to be when you were in high school?
I had no. At the time, the only thing we knew was going to the military. We didn't really think of anything else but that.
During those early months and years of the war, there was rationing, and there was coupons, and there were scrap drives. Did you participate in any of those activities?
No, the rationing, my parents got ration stamps and stuff, and then the only thing I did, I was a junior air raid warden. And they had the air raid wardens setups around the town, Washington and so forth.
Do you recall where you served your time?
Pierce School, 14th and G Street, Northeast.
Can you describe what you did during? I know that we never were attacked. What did you do?
We'd have mock air raids, and we were messengers, and we'd run back and send messages out, run back and forth to the different posts and so forth there for the air raid warden.
Did you get to wear some type of
We had an
badge?
armband they wore. I think it was the wardens had a metal cap helmet that they wore, if I remember right. Yeah, but it was just a fun thing to do, really. I mean, we didn't think nothing about it because all around Washington at that time, at all the bridges and everything else, anti-aircraft guns were set up. There.
How much security was around the anti-aircraft guns? Could a kid like you just approach them? Or?
Well, we could approach them and so forth and just chase us away. We didn't have the security you have today, there, you know, or anything like that. And so we never had. There's nothing like today in those days.
When did you get your first car?
1947.
So it was after the war?
Yeah.
Did you get a driver's license before
No,
you
I
went
have
in
a
the
driver's
service?
license after I came out of the service. I was 21 when I got my driver's license.
How about your family? Did they have a car?
My father never owned a car.
So they had to walk or take a train or bus wherever you went?
Well, we had public transportation, which was excellent around Washington at that time. We could walk 2 blocks and get on a streetcar and ride anywhere in the city you want to ride. And I know I used to date when I was 16, and on Sunday I'd buy. My sister was working, and she'd get a streetcar pass, which was $1. And on Sunday I'd buy it for her because 3 could ride on that pass. So 3 of us would get on that pass and we'd catch it and ride out to the zoo, Glen Echo, or any place like that. Yeah. It didn't cost us anything.
Was there a particular hangout you liked to hang out at when you were in your late teens?
No, like I say, I was busy working, and most of the time I was at the boys' clubs. I was playing ball and there at the Christ Child House, Merrick's Boys Club, and I played 1 year with Southeast Boys Club. I played football and baseball down at the old Rosedale Playground and places like that. But we could walk to every place we wanted to go.
The war started bad for us. We had defeats out in the Pacific. We had took a long time to build up our forces. The air forces were bombing Germany. Did you follow the news much when the war had started as a 15-year-old?
No, I don't recall following it too much. I knew of it and had some idea what was going on, but I don't think there was any doubt in our mind that we would win it. I think that was the difference.
Was there anybody who was ever killed or wounded that you knew before you went into the service?
Yeah, we had one kid at Asian High School, a fellow by the name of Eddie Nicholson, and he got killed with the Marines out in the Pacific, and that's about the only one I knew of then. But he was 17 when he got killed. Yeah, but that's the only. And then when I was still in high school, I had friends that were already overseas, and so I used to hear from them. But
did that death make an impact on you at the time? Scare you away?
Really, not as a teenager. It really didn't. It made an impact on him because, as far as he was considered to be one of the premier athletes at the time. So it did have some effect generally across the board because of his reputation more than anything else, you know.
But it didn't deter you from wanting to go?
No, I didn't. I wanted to go, and Uncle Sam saw to that.
In January 1944,
that's when I registered for the draft, and I was drafted in March of '44. They let me finish school in June of '44, and I went into basic training in July of '44 at Fort McClellan, Alabama.
You mentioned that they let you finish school.
Yeah.
Did you have to apply for that?
No, they. I don't recall applying for it, but those of us that was in our last quarter there in high school who were being drafted were allowed to finish high school.
The day that you received your draft notice, did you show it to your mom?
I don't remember.
Don't remember? When you, where did you have to report to when you got drafted? Was there a local office or?
Yeah, we reported to, well, we took our physicals at Fort Myer, Virginia, and then we got our notice, reported downtown to a local school, and which we then were transported to Fort Meade, Maryland. There.
You said we. Was there others?
Oh yeah, there was a whole bunch of us.
Did you know these folks?
Oh, a lot of them I did. Right. In fact, there was 4 of us went at the same time. It was a fellow named Jack Moncastle, Woody Morrison, Morris Warner, and myself. Plus, there were others I knew of, and we all went out to Fort Meade. In Fort Meade, we were assigned to various basic training facilities, and I was assigned to Fort McClellan, Alabama, for my basic, and the other 3 guys were assigned to Camp Landing, Florida. And we all came home at the same time in November of '44 on a delay en route. And they shipped right overseas. The Queen Mary was captured in the Bulge. I went over in a convoy in a Liberty ship, and took 14 days to get across.
Do you remember the name of that ship?
No. In fact, I'm going to take a Liberty ship cruise October the 8th out of Baltimore.
I heard of that one.
Yeah.
So from July to November '44, you were down in Alabama.
July, to November '44. It took 17 weeks basic infantry, what they call infantry replacement training center.
At that time, you did not know what division or regiment you were going to be in.
We were going to go as replacements.
When you were drafted, were you ever given a choice on what to join?
Well, they had 2 vacancies. One was a Marine, and one was for the Navy. I wanted the Navy, but I didn't get it. It's out of maybe there's 100 of us there. And a friend of mine chose the Marines because nobody else wanted the Marines. And he got the Marines there. But the rest of us went Army. And those days, there was no Air Force. Army was the all-inclusive, including the Army Air Corps.
When you went in, you wanted the Navy, but you didn't get it, and then you got into the Army. What did you want to do in the Army? Was there any particular job?
No, we just got basic training and so forth, and we were going to go over as riflemen.
During basic training, was there anything that was challenging to you that you didn't think you would be able to succeed in?
I guess every day was challenging because of you're in Alabama in 100-degree weather, and you're continuously walking or running somewhere and so forth, and you have full field pack on you usually, and an 8-pound steel pod and 11-pound rifle, and you weigh 117 pounds, so every day had to be a challenge.
Did you lose a lot of weight during the training?
I gained weight. I went from 117 to 148.
Were you completely physically fit?
Oh yeah, physically fit and good and mean.
So you had the attitude of a soldier
Right.
after 17 weeks. Did you make any friends when you got to McClellan, or were you just all by yourself?
Well, I made friends there. I don't want to recall anybody in particular. I mean, we just, because we were from all over the country, and then we shipped out all over the place. None of us shipped out together, you know. So, it's, but I did make a real good friend in Fort Meade. He took training at Fort McClellan too. He's from Baltimore, and he and I became very friendly at Fort Meade. And we shipped up to Boston to ship out, and we shipped overseas together, right on up to the repo depots and everything. We were really close. But his first day in action, he got killed.
Were you nearby when he was?
No, we shipped up. I went to the 1st Battalion C Company, the 319th. He went to the 3rd Battalion K Company. And I was nearby, he probably within a 10-mile radius, but each company operates as a unit and within the battalions and the battalion all. And he got killed, but I think it was February 16th.
Within a day of being up there? Within 1 day of being on the front?
First day on the line.
Tell me about the training. One day that you recall in Alabama, maybe your hardest day. Do you recall that day?
Oh, I don't know. You had so much of it. You had fears put into you when you went to the infiltration courses with machine guns, supposed to be with live ammunition firing above your head, and you're crawling there, and they get these little explosions being detonated off around you. And he said some guy crawled onto a rattlesnake and jumped up and got killed. And so we went on that. We went in with that fear, you know, of the snake more than the gun itself, you know, and things like that. I think the 25-mile forced hike that we had to take at the end of basic training, and which we did in about 7 hours, but it was so hot that day we did it from about midnight until about 7 o'clock the next morning there. It was too hot during the day to do it.
Were you exposed to a whole lot of variety of weapons?
Yeah, all the infantry type weapons, light machine guns, heavy machine guns, mortars, rifles, rifle grenades.
What did you like the best?
I really didn't think much about it.
But you wanted to be a soldier, though.
Right. Well, I was a soldier. Didn't whether I wanted to be or not, I was a soldier.
Was there anybody else at McClellan that desperately did not want to be there and confided in you about, I want to go home or something? Was that attitude around?
No, it was around, but you generally didn't there. It's just that it's the way they brought you together as a group of men there. You were in a platoon together. You lived in the same barracks. And we had to depend on each other. If one guy messed up, everybody got punished.
Was there any officers that stick out in your mind during your training?
No, none. The only one that sticks out of my mind was my first sergeant. He was an old-time first sergeant. It must have been in his 40s or something that time. And I was a little scared of him because he's kind of gruffy old guy, you know. So, well, here I am, just a kid. And at the end of basic, the old guy put his arm around me and says, "Kid, I tried to keep you here. I didn't want you to go." I said to myself, that mean old son of a gun. He really. But I was very young looking. I hadn't shaved. I didn't shave until I was at an inspection, and some shaved-tail lieutenant coming along saw I had a little black growth above my lip there, and he made me shave.
Did you see any shows or go to any dances while you were in training then?
No.
With no time, or did you get
No
passes?
time. They didn't have any.
No?
They had movie theaters, something which you could go. You may go down to that. Nothing special. We used to like to go up to PX at the end of the day and drink 3.2 beer for a couple of hours. Yeah. Put some of the liquid back in your system that you took out.
During those years, were you a big smoker?
Yes. I smoked 2 packs of Chesterfields a day. Inhaled every drag. Yeah. And one of the things that we did do that's in our cartridge belt, you see, which was supposed to have ammunition around it, we had cigarettes there. We had our ammunition in bandoliers, like Punchville had.
How about the uniforms you wore? Were they standard issue?
Standard issue fatigues and khakis and ODs.
Did you ever get a dress uniform while you were in McClellan?
Oh yeah, we had our ODs and we had our khakis in the summertime, dress khakis. And we would stand inspection on Saturday morning. uniforms were usually starched, and we'd get up on a foot locker and hold the pants down and put our leg into it without bending the knee. There.
Did you ever see any of the instructors or commanders down there that was unfair to the men?
No, I never thought anything. I mean, you did what you're supposed to do. You know, you mind your own business and do your job. And you learn that, and that's the only. And it teaches you to do what you have to do. I guess that's the best way to explain it. And that's the same attitude I've had always throughout life.
You got on a train and you came to, did you come to New Jersey to cross the ocean on the Liberty ship?
We went up to Boston, Massachusetts from Fort Meade, Maryland.
Okay.
And we went to, forget the name, Camp Standish, I think it was something up there.
Mount Standish.
Yeah, and then from there, they lined us up, and then we went into Boston and got aboard Liberty ships to go. It was one of the biggest convoys, they say, that ever went over, because ships came out of every port on the East Coast and met out in the Atlantic there.
Were the ships close enough that you could see them?
You could see a ship here or there, but it was. And they say aboard our ship was about 10,000 men. I guess that's true. I don't know, but we were stacked in there like sardines.
Did you get seasick?
I didn't, but 80% of the guys were seasick, and we were walloping puke all the way across there. And I had a couple buddies sort of teamed up there, and they went to work for the fireman's mess, and they would bring us back something to eat at that night. We couldn't even get in the chow line, because as soon as you get in there, somebody would upchuck. It's just a horrible experience to go aboard one of those things.
How was the food that you got from the mess hall?
We're in the Army?
On the ship?
I didn't eat. Very rarely would eat anything. Couldn't. What would you? You stand there and you're in line, some guy pukes right in his tray. And then what they serve you looks just like it. You know. So I ate very little aboard ship. I ate by these friends of mine bring it back from the fireman's mess where they worked there. They'd bring back sandwiches or something like that. That's what we ate.
How long were you in transit across the ocean?
I think it was about 12 days.
And where did you land?
Le Havre, France.
When you got off at Le Havre, did you go into camp right there in France? Or did you start off marching immediately?
No, in Le Havre, they assembled us, and we shipped out within a day or two from Le Havre, and caught 40 and 8 trains across France to Belgium.
What town did you get off on in Belgium?
I don't remember the town. It was what they call a repo depot, replacement depot, and from there we were reassigned up into the various outfits where we would go.
At what time of the year do you think you made it at the repo depot?
Somewhere around January 12th.
Had you heard about the Battle of the Bulge raging for the past month?
We heard it was going on, yeah. In our first encounter with aircraft, we used to have a plane that flew overnight called Bed Check Charlie. And just Messerschmitt would fly over.
Nazi?
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah.
Did you see any fleets of our bombers going on missions?
Only when we were up in the line, we were in combat. We see them go over.
You got to the Rebel Depot, and how long did you stay there before you were sent to the front?
I think 4 or 5 days.
So here it is, getting close to the end of January, and you finally make it to your
I
company.
came into the 80th Division, my company, on the 28th of January.
When you arrived, you were a replacement, am I correct?
Right.
Did they assign you to a certain squad?
Well, we came up in trucks. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. Got off the trucks. Nobody even acknowledged you were there or anything else. And actually, I wandered into the C Company. Ended up getting in C Company. Nobody even spoke to me, told me to go to hell or anything else.
You just
Nobody wanted
wandered
to know
in?
you. You were a replacement. There. These old timers seen too many replacements come in and be gone the next day. So, really a very cold shoulder that you got.
Who did you sign in with that day?
And I ended up in company headquarters at C Company and signed in there, and they assigned me to the 3rd platoon, the 3rd squad, and that's where I stayed. And I really only recall getting to know one guy there. I was sitting up there drinking a little tavern they had in that town, drinking a little wine or something, and a fellow by the name of Charlie DeVisser. And I got to know him. That was the only. When I went to combat, I didn't know anybody.
How about your sergeant? Was he just
I didn't know
assigned?
them either.
He just started yelling at you and doing things?
No, they just pulled us together as a squad and moved out, and we followed the leader.
Did you stay with that same sergeant or whoever in charge of that squad the entire combat career?
No, because we had several. That sergeant we went across the Yarra River with got wounded right next to me up on the Yarra River. And then we had a replacement for him, a Sergeant Brown. He pretty much stayed with us. And then we had a buck sergeant, assistant squad leader, got wounded. And then we had a fellow man named Jim Acree, became friends later on with, and so was our assistant squad leader. And he got that. He didn't get that until March of '45. But your squad was your family. You got to know each one member of your squad, but you're as far as knowing anybody else in the other squads, you may know of them. You may speak to one of them once in a while, but you never personally knew any of them.
How large was this squad?
12 men.
Do you recall anybody else today in that squad?
Yeah, I still have contact with Jim Acree, who was the assistant squad leader there.
What weapon did you use?
M1.
Were you given any hand grenades also?
Oh yeah, we carried 2 hand grenades up here. Had suspenders on. Carried 2 hand grenades and 3 bandoliers of ammunition. There.
Do you recall your very first time you came under attack?
Well, very first, I mean, other than some over in the town waiting to go across the Yarra River, we heard a lot of shelling and so forth, but nothing directly came in on us. And the first time I went on attack was across the Yarra River.
Can you describe that attack?
Well, the night of February the 6th, we hauled pontoon boats down the bank there. In fact, I got it on tape. But hauled pontoon boats down to the river, and so slick down there, we slid halfway down and came back. That about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, we got a couple hours sleep, and we were ordered to go down and go across in these boats, which we did, and without oars. The road to currents, the river wasn't real. It was a swollen river. The currents were real rapid, and we went across in those rowboats. We lost guys there right away once you went in, because you had so much equipment on and all. I was carrying 25 pounds of TNT and didn't know it.
In the middle of the night or daytime?
About 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then we were fortunate that we went across, the swollen river took us in over top of the minefields that they had laid on the other side, which was fortunate. But then those of us got there, we reorganized and moved out across some flat ground, which was all minefields, and moved up into, laid into this sort of like a hillside, because these were all concrete boxes that, and had direct line of fire on us. And that's where my Staff Sergeant Jim Rogers got hit. The mortar came in, hit him in the legs. I was laying into the bank, and it's really my initiation there. And then we moved up on top of the high ground there and dug in, and we were stuck there for about 5 or 6 days.
Did you see the enemy at all at that time?
Yeah, they came down. They attacked one pillbox down there with some flamethrowers, but they continuously fired artillery on us. They didn't let up, and we couldn't get out because it cut us with machine guns. So
were you shooting back in it?
For whatever we could see. The enemy didn't want you to see them, nor do you want to see. You very rarely get a direct shot. I got some shots off on the guys with the flamethrower. Whether I hit any of them, I don't know. There. I never know that I killed anybody.
How far away was these people when you shot at them?
Probably 100 yards. There. They came in, came down on the lower bank down there.
You were stuck in this hole for 5 days. Was there anybody else that shared your hole with you?
Yeah, a fellow by the name of Paul Stafford. And there was 2 men to a hole, and the whole platoon was pinned down in there, what was left of us.
What did you have to do to relieve yourself?
Well, that's what your steel pod was for.
You didn't get out of the hole, though?
Not that I recall. You take your steel pod and do what you had to do and throw it out and put it back.
Was it hot? Or, I mean, excuse me, was it freezing cold?
Yeah, it was freezing cold weather. We had a lot of trench foot. A buddy of mine lost both feet from trench foot there.
Was there any, was it just your platoon on that side of the river, or was there other platoons?
Oh, we just got our company across for several days. And they try to build bridges across there, and every time they get about the last pontoon in the bridge, this artillery observer, he'd call in a round of artillery and wipe it right out. So finally, about 3 or 4 days later, the engineers used that as a decoy and went downriver and put a bridge across. Then we started getting tanks and stuff across.
But you didn't retreat?
No. Where are you going to retreat to? There's no going forward, no going backwards.
You were just there?
It was just there for them. And then after that, I think it was B Company pushed through us a few days later, and they get tore up real bad. And A Company took Wallendorf the next day, and they got shot up real bad. And then we pushed around, about 5 days later, we pushed around B Company and came upon some area and got pinned down there with some holes there around. We got those. And they were all filled with water, just had about 6 or 8 inches of water in them. And so what we had to do was sit on our pods, steel pods, and hold our feet up there. And that's why I got my feet frozen then. And we had a pillbox right across from us, and a tank there, I guess maybe 200 yards. That tank would fire direct onto that pillbox, and the Germans come running out, and as soon as he quit, they run back in again. Yeah. I heard later, and I don't know how true it is, that Germans had an underground factory underneath that pillbox.
How big was this pillbox?
Well, usually a pillbox is about the size of a room like this.
Did you enter any pillboxes?
Yeah, several of them.
But it's after it was evacuated,
Right.
not while they're being used?
I never actually cleaned one out, but I know guys that were in on the clean out of some of them. And so we took this TNT that we had, and they took a pole charge and stick it up against the door, and it wouldn't even dent the thing. I mean, these are 3 foot, 4 foot thick concrete rebar reinforced boxes there, and they all had a machine gun mount in it, and a couple of windows in there. So,
were there any German tanks that you came across?
I've come across them. I think the main one one that I know, one that fired directly on me, was coming through. Well, the day before, I think it was 6th Armor Division down around Saarbrücken, if I'm right, and we took some pillboxes, ran some patrols at night, and we the next day we got orders to move out, and we moved out one at a time across, like, you know, they set up a smoke screen like it was running a football field, and I got pinned down in a creek over there. An 88 came in, it was sitting right in the creek, didn't go off, and there's 3 of us there. And a good friend of mine said he was agnostic, and said, well, he prayed the loudest of all the 3 of us. But then we came out of there and we reorganized down the road there around some building, and that same day we got orders. The next day we got orders to move out, and there was a guy sitting there, and I got this on tape too. A fellow by the name of Charlie DeVissa, the one that greeted me when I first came up there. He told us that he was going to get it that day. And we moved out, and we moved into this open. This German Tiger tank fired directly in, and the first shell went off, probably not 20 yards from where I was. It hit the guy in front of me, hit the guy in back of me, and tore my jacket out, but didn't hit no flesh. And I dragged the guy out in front of me, and I got hit out of the line of fire. And then the other guys sort of ran up away from it, and we ran across out of the way of it, and the tank just traversed fire right, followed them up the hill and so forth. And told Charlie DeVissa got it. He had the back of his head blown off. So, and got that. A friend of mine told me about that, which I didn't know. And I always thought, you know, years later that there was a little fiction. I couldn't believe that he said that he was going to get it. But we were sitting around talking up at a reunion. 3 or 4 guys joined in and says we were there. That's what he said. So.
After the Our River, you went to.
Well, we went to Saarbrücken, down through there. We went back into the Siegfried line down there. We broke the lease, which was pinned down, but couldn't get through because of dragon teeth and all that type of thing being there. And from there, I think we went to Kaiserslautern, and we took a part of the town, but it was fairly easy action in Kaiserslautern, as I remember. In fact, we stayed over in that town for a couple of days' rest, and we swung on up through Mainz, Wiesbaden, up through that way, and across the Rhine.
Did you do more combat fighting when you were doing this?
Isolated incidents.
But not to the intensity of the Our River.
No. And then the next big battle we had was at Kassel, Germany. We crossed the Rhine River.
Can you tell me about that day?
That's a strange story, I tell you. We moved out on the Kassel, and I forgot the name of the town we moved out from. But we got pinned down the open field by some Messerschmitts going over it. They didn't see us, fortunately, because we froze, and they didn't see us. And then that night we dug in around there, and this fellow by the name of Sergeant John Dolan, the second squad. We all dug in, and we were pretty much exhausted. You know, you're in such a situation, you'd stand up and go to sleep. We were pretty much